Hello and a very warm welcome to Rajya Sabha TV. I'm Tina Jha with news tonight. Let's begin with the top stories first. In a big blow to AIADMK, its chief Jayalalitha is sentenced to 4 years in jail and fined 100 crore rupees in an 18-year-old DA case. In his maiden speech at the UN General Assembly, Prime Minister Narendra Modi calls out to Pakistan to shun terrorism, saying India wants peace and is ready for talks. On the last day of nominations for Maharashtra and Haryana, more than 3,500 candidates filed their papers. States will go to polls on 15th October. Britain joins the fight against Islamic State in Syria. White House welcomes decision as the UK Parliament gives its nod. And it was a golden day for India at the Asian Games as archers and squash players shined through. And the big political story of the day, AIADMK chief Jayalalitha has been sentenced to 4 years in jail in an 18-year-old disproportionate assets case. The announcement of the verdict resulted in clashes in various parts of the state as her supporters poured out into the streets protesting the verdict passed by a Bangalore court.
Four years in jail and a penalty of 100 crore rupees. That's the sentence handed down to AIADMK chief J. Jayalalitha in an 18-year-old disproportionate assets case. Jayalalitha has been accused of misusing her first term as Chief Minister of Tamil Nadu from 1991 to 1996 to collect assets that were vastly disproportionate to her income. The prosecution argued that she took a salary of just 1 rupee when she was elected Chief Minister, but used her 5-year tenure to illegally gather assets, adding up to 66 crore rupees. The alleged illegal wealth includes 2,000 acres of land, 30 kgs of gold and 12,000 saris.
Today, the special court convicted Tamil Nadu Chief Minister Kumari Jayalalitha and her co-accused associates to Shashikala A3, Sudhakaran A4, Ilavarasi, sentenced them to 4 years simple imprisonment, and for A1 Jayalalitha 100 crores fine is imposed.
Concerned whether Jayalalitha goes to jail or not, the more important thing is that a person who has been accused by an ordinary citizen, which I was at that stage and still am, it will generate confidence in the country that we can fight corruption.
The verdict brought forth strong emotions from Amma's supporters. Clashes were reported from across the state soon after the Bangalore court announced it. Angry supporters pelted stones at the residences of Subramanian Swamy, who had originally filed the complaint against her, and DMK chief M. Karunanidhi. AIADMK workers clashed with DMK workers who were celebrating the verdict. Amma's supporters forcibly shut shops and blocked traffic in several parts of Chennai. The verdict comes as a severe blow to Jayalalitha, who will now have to step down as Chief Minister. As per the new Supreme Court guidelines, she also faces a political ban of at least 10 years. The verdict has left the AIADMK in the lurch in the run-up to the 2016 Assembly elections.
It is a very significant judgment that has come today. It means the Chief Minister cannot remain as Chief Minister. She has to step down. It will have its own impact on the politics of Tamil Nadu.
It is a confirmation and a reaffirmation that everyone is equal before law. Whatever are the legal options now before Ms. Jayalalitha, that is for her and her party to decide.
Well, the verdict has just come in, so therefore these are situations which will evolve and they will play themselves out as things move on. At this point in time, there is a judgment. Personally, I have not seen the judgment. I do not know what are the reasons why the court has come to a particular conclusion. But if the court has come to a certain conclusion, it has come to a certain conclusion.
This is not the first time Jayalalitha has had to quit as Chief Minister. She had to resign immediately after taking oath in 2001, following the Supreme Court declaring null and void the action of then Governor Fatima Bibi, appointing her as the CM, as she had been sentenced to 2 years rigorous imprisonment in a corruption case. Bureau Report, Rajya Sabha TV.
And joining us on the phone line on this big story is senior journalist Siddharth Varadarajan. Mr. Varadarajan, a very warm welcome to Rajya Sabha TV. With this verdict, there is a political vacuum in Tamil Nadu now. How do you see this political vacuum being filled, and who, according to you, is the best person who can now take charge?
Well, the vacuum is will be filled by her handpicked nominee, whose identity really need not be of too much of concern, because that person will be a figurehead who will implement whatever it is that Jayalalitha wants him or her to do. This was the case in 2001 when she made Mr. O. Paneerselvam the Chief Minister. And I see no reason why she will depart from that model of her being a non-playing captain, so to speak, running the ship of state from either jail or from a residence if she gets bail. So the vacuum will, I suppose, be felt by 2016, when, if by that time, if she's still in jail and the AIADMK has to take part in elections, which is when, that's when elections are due, that's when the vacuum will be really felt, not right now.
Also, Mr. Varadarajan, 10 years is a very long time. She will be 76 when she's next allowed to contest. Do you think she'll be able to retain this stature that she enjoys at this point in time?
Well, if the AIADMK as a party endures, then perhaps 10 years is a period that she can wait on. Obviously, her calculation will be to somehow get acquitted on appeal. I don't know whether she'll succeed in that or not, but assuming that it is a 10-year period, it's a long time, obviously. But there is no second in command, there is no third in command. It's not as if there are other leaders who are in a position to capture the party or to run the party.
Right.
It's entirely a one-woman show.
Yeah.
And to that extent, if she thinks, then the party thinks with her. And that's and talking about a major reconfiguration of politics in Tamil Nadu.
Right,
but
looking at the current... Yeah, but looking at the current situation, it's a major blow to the AIADMK and an advantage to the rival party, the DMK. Thank you, Mr. Varadarajan, for joining us with those details. Now we'll move on to another big story of the day. In his maiden speech to the United Nations General Assembly, Prime Minister Narendra Modi called out to Pakistan to shun terrorism if it wants to see any progress in bilateral ties. In his speech in Hindi, Modi said India was ready to talk with Pakistan as it wanted friendly relations with all its neighbours. But he also insisted that for this, it was important that Pakistan stops all kind of terrorism emanating from its soil.
मेरी सरकार ने पहले ही दिन से पड़ोसी देशों से मित्रता और सहयोग बढ़ाने पर पूरी प्राथमिकता दी है और पाकिस्तान के प्रति भी मेरी यही नीति है। मैं पाकिस्तान से मित्रता और सहयोग बढ़ाने के लिए पूरी गंभीरता से शांतिपूर्ण वातावरण में बिना आतंक के साये के साथ द्विपक्षीय वार्ता करना चाहता हूं, लेकिन पाकिस्तान का भी यह दायित्व है कि उपयुक्त वातावरण बनाएं और गंभीरता से द्विपक्षीय बातचीत के लिए सामने आए और इस मंच पर बात उठाने से समाधान के प्रयास कितने सफल होंगे, इस पर कईयों को शक है।
The United Nations needs to be more inclusive if it wants to retain its relevance. This was Modi's call for reforms at the organizations. India has been trying for a permanent seat on the UN Security Council for a long time.
संयुक्त राष्ट्र सुरक्षा परिषद में सुधार लाना, इसे अधिक जनतांत्रिक और भागीदारी परक बनाना हमारे लिए अनिवार्य है। 20वीं सदी की अनिवार्यताओं को प्रतिबिंबित करने वाली संस्थाएं 21वीं सदी में प्रभावी सिद्ध नहीं होंगी। इनके सम्मुख अप्रासंगिक होने का खतरा प्रस्तुत होगा। और मैं आग्रह से कहना चाहता हूं कि पिछली शताब्दी के आवश्यकताओं के अनुसार जिन बातों पर हमने बल दिया, जिन नीति नियमों का निर्धारण किया, 21वीं सदी में विश्व काफी बदल चुका है, बदल रहा है और बदलने की गति भी बड़ी तेज है। ऐसे समय ये अनिवार्य हो जाता है कि हम समय के साथ अपने आप को ढालें, हम परिवर्तन करें, हम नए विचारों पर बल दें। अगर ये हम कर पाएंगे तभी जाकर के हमारा रिलेवेंस रहेगा।
And before his UNGA address, Prime Minister Modi met UN Chief Ban Ki-moon at the UN headquarters. During his interaction with the UN Secretary General, Modi referred to Pakistan Prime Minister Nawaz Sharif's remarks on Kashmir. He strongly implied that the UN was not the appropriate forum to raise the Kashmir issue, emphasizing that it was a bilateral matter. He also raised the issue of combating terrorism. And India has reacted strongly to Pakistan Prime Minister Nawaz Sharif raking up the Kashmir issue at the UN General Assembly. However, it said that it will use its right to reply and set the record straight on the floor of the UNGA. The Pak Prime Minister blamed India for another missed opportunity to address outstanding issues by cancelling the Foreign Secretary level talks.
Pakistan Prime Minister Nawaz Sharif's remarks on Kashmir have not gone down too well with the Indian government. The External Affairs Ministry said by raising this issue at the UN General Assembly, Sharif had lost an opportunity to raise more important ones.
The right to reply is something that a country can use. Prime Minister tomorrow is going to make his statement in a forward-looking manner. As regards the right to reply, certainly India will use its right to reply and set the record straight.
Exercising India's right to reply, one of its diplomats rebutted the Pakistan Prime Minister from the floor of the Assembly. India asserted that the people of Jammu and Kashmir have peacefully chosen their destiny in accordance with universally accepted democratic principles. India has rejected Sharif's comments as untenable. This is what Nawaz Sharif had said about Kashmir in his speech.
We cannot draw a veil on the issue of Kashmir until it is addressed in accordance with the wishes of the people of Jammu and Kashmir. Pakistan is ready to work for resolution of this issue through negotiations. Our support and advocacy of the right to self-determination of the people of Jammu and Kashmir is our historic commitment and a duty as a party to the Kashmir dispute.
The Pak Prime Minister also launched a veiled attack on India's call for reforms in the Security Council.
The ongoing UN reform must be comprehensive. We support a reform of the Security Council that will reflect the interest of all member states, small, medium-sized and large, and not the ambitions of a few. There should be no new permanent seats in the Council.
With Nawaz Sharif raising this issue, any possibility of a meeting with Modi in the US is now ruled out. The ball is strictly in Pakistan's court now as to when they approach ties with India with a positive outlook. The next time the two leaders meet on an international forum is in Kathmandu in November. With inputs from Akhilesh Suman, Bureau Report for Rajya Sabha TV.
And Prime Minister Narendra Modi received a rock star's welcome in New York last night. More than 20,000 Indians greeted him on the way to the hotel, cheering and waving to him. And in a rare gesture, the Prime Minister reciprocated by stepping out of his vehicle and meeting fellow Indians. Take a look.
It was a moment of deja vu for Prime Minister Narendra Modi on Friday when he was greeted by these chants. Only that this time, he was being greeted by fellow countrymen not in India, but in the United States. Moments after he landed at the JFK airport in New York, he was greeted by thousands of Indians lining the streets to get one glimpse of their Prime Minister.
Modi, Modi, welcome.
Shouting slogans in his support and displaying placards professing their admiration, the Indian diaspora stood outside the New York hotel where Modi will be staying till the 29th of September. And almost impulsively responding to the rousing reception, Prime Minister Modi stepped out of his car and waded into the crowd.
Modi ji made history today in the United States. He was the first head of the state who came to the regular street and meet their own volunteer as well as their welcome general public.
Later, in his first official engagement, Prime Minister Modi met New York's Mayor Bill de Blasio. Modi discussed issues related to large cities, especially common threats of terror, policing, public housing and crowd management that could help Indians during mega events like the Kumbh Mela. He also had a meeting with eminent Nobel laureate and famous cancer specialist Professor Harold Warmus and invited him to visit India to assist in health and public care research. Prime Minister Modi started the second day of his US visit by paying tributes at the 9/11 Memorial in New York. He also visited the 9/11 Museum, where once again he was greeted by hundreds of supporters. Bureau Report, Rajya Sabha TV.
All right, we slip into a very short break here. Up next, all the action from the Asian Games. Do stay with us. Welcome back. You're watching News Tonight. Now, news just coming in that President's rule has been imposed in the state of Maharashtra just 2 days after Chief Minister Prithviraj Chavan resigned. Joining us on that latest development, our correspondent Vishal Daya. Vishal, just weeks before the state heads to assembly polls, the President's rule has been imposed. What does it mean for the states? Remember, Prithviraj Chavan had resigned just 2 days before when the NCP pulled its plug from the state government, and the Maharashtra governor has now accepted the resignation of Prithviraj Chavan, asking him to continue as caretaker chief minister till the formation of a new government. All right, we'll go to Vishal. Vishal, just days before the state goes to polls, assembly polls are to be held in Maharashtra, President's rule has been imposed. What does it imply?
Well, Tina, the political scenario in the state of Maharashtra has seen a rapid change in the last 48 to 72 hours. And all this was set in motion when day before yesterday, both the alliances and those alliances were decade-old alliances. They came down crashing. All four parties decided to part ways and contest elections on their own. Right. Now, post that development yesterday, after NCP submitted a letter to the governor saying that they are withdrawing support from the coalition government, though technically speaking, if you look at it that way, it doesn't make much more of a difference as of now because the Model Code of Conduct is in place since September 20th and the present government was only a caretaker government. The polls are going to be held on October 15, but this is since the alliance partner had withdrew the support and the chief minister taking the moral responsibility, or rather taking a moral high ground, had submitted his resignation to the governor. The governor had to go ahead and take a technical decision. The technical decision was taken when the chief minister was asked earlier in the day to stay as a caretaker chief minister. And just a short while ago, the union cabinet, on the advice of the governor, has decided to impose president's rule, which will be there in the state till the time new assembly is formed. That's 19th of this month.
All right, Vishal, thank you so much for giving us those inputs. Now, a day after it became clear that it would be a four-cornered contest in Maharashtra, over 3,000 nominations were filed in the state. Haryana also closed its nomination office with 513 candidates for the assembly elections to be held on the 15th of October.
The changed political scenario in Maharashtra has created new problems for parties in the state. On the last day of nominations, it became clear that not all political parties have the necessary numbers to field candidates in all seats. The Shiv Sena will contest all 288 seats but has refused to give out the names of candidates. Similarly, the NCP has released a list of 131 candidates, even though it has not announced a candidate against Prithviraj Chavan. The Congress, meanwhile, has filed nominations for all 288 seats. In Haryana, meanwhile, senior politicians, including Chief Minister Bhupendra Singh Hooda, filed their nominations. INLD Chief Ashok Arora also filed his nomination with other party members. HJC head Kuldeep Bishnoi came to file his nomination from the Adhampur constituency along with his brother. The scrutiny of nominations will take place on 29th of September, while the last date of withdrawal is 1st of October. Both states will go to polls on the 15th of October and the results will be declared on 19th of October. Bureau Report, Rajya Sabha TV.
And let's move on to some international news now. After France, Britain also prepares to join the US-led forces in a fight against the Islamic State in Iraq and Syria. The UK Parliament gave its nod for the country's participation in a renewed war against the Islamic State in the Middle East. The White House has welcomed the decision.
The British Parliament on Friday approved the resolution that seeks a fight against the Islamic State in Iraq and the Middle East. After France, Britain is the latest to join the US-led forces in their fight against the IS. UK Prime Minister David Cameron justified the resolution, saying the IS was a threat to the world.
This is going to be a mission that will take not just months, but years. But I believe we have to be prepared for that commitment.
The recent vote that occurred in the British Parliament indicating their strong support for the plan that the President has put forward for dealing with the threat that's posed by ISIL.
The US-led forces have widened their strikes against the IS in Syria. On Saturday morning, the forces conducted airstrikes on eastern Syria, killing several militants. The Britain-based Syrian Observatory for Human Rights said that at least 31 explosions were heard in the province of Raqqa, which is a stronghold of the IS. However, in the face of foreign airstrikes, the IS is changing its tactics. The group is hoisting their flags on homes and has reduced their cell phone use since the airstrikes intensified. The IS militants are also not moving in military convoys like before. They are now using motorcycles and bicycles. Bureau Report, Rajya Sabha TV.
And it was a golden day for India at the Asian Games on Saturday. Day 8 saw Indian athletes at their productive best with an impressive haul of 11 medals, including 2 gold medals, to jump to the 11th position in the overall standings.
The men's compound archery team brought big cheers to the Indian contingent as they bagged the first ever gold in Asian Games after stunning host South Korea in the finals. The men's trio of Rajat Chauhan, Sandeep Kumar and Abhishek Verma beat South Korea by 2 points with the final score of 227 to 225. Archer Abhishek Verma also brought laurels individually, picking up the silver medal in the compound men's individual event. Verma lost the gold medal match to Iran's Ebadi Ismail 141 to 145. Earlier in the day, the women's team of Trisha Deb, Purvasha Sudhir Shende and Jyoti Surekha won the bronze in the compound event, winning the playoff against Iran 224 to 217. Trisha Deb then boosted India's tally in archery by clinching a bronze in the compound women's individual event. Trisha won 138 to 134 against her Chinese Taipei rival despite trailing till the last arrow. The squash team signed off with a historic gold as the men's team beat Malaysia 2-0 in the final. However, the women's team had to settle for the silver after going down to Malaysia 0-2 in the final. The squash players wrapped up the game with the best ever medal haul of 1 gold, 2 silver and 1 bronze. In shooting, Chen Singh gave India their 9th medal from the game as he finished 3rd in the 50-meter rifle 3 positions event. India also got 2 bronze in wrestling. Vinesh Phogat beat her Mongolian counterpart 10-0 in the women's 48 kg freestyle event, while Geetika Jakhar beat her Vietnamese opponent in the women's freestyle 63 kg event to claim the bronze. In athletics, India got a silver and a bronze in women's 3000 meter steeplechase. Lalita Babbar and Sudha Singh finished 2nd and 3rd respectively. The men's hockey team also booked a place in the semi-final after a hard-fought 2-0 win over China in the last group game. V.R. Raghunath and Birendra Lakra scored for India. In tennis, the mixed doubles pair of Sania Mirza and Saket Sai advanced to the semis after beating their Korean opponents. Yuki Bhamri and the doubles pair of Sanam Singh and Saket Sai also entered the semis. In boxing, El Sarita Devi, Pooja Rani, MC Moiricom won their respective bouts to reach the quarter-final. In the men's section, Gaurav Bidhuri and Mandeep Jangra also advanced to the quarters. At the end of the 8th day, India moved up to the 11th spot with 3 gold, 5 silver and 20 bronze medals. China are at the top with 96 golds, followed by hosts Korea and Japan. Bureau Report, Rajya Sabha TV.
And that's all we have for you in News Tonight. Thanks for watching.